What is going on, you beautiful people? First and foremost, thank you for being a part of this new episode. It's with my good buddy Mike, and I've been meaning to sit down with Mike since I even had the thought of ever filming a podcast. And it's because of, he's a big motivator for me in wanting to share these conversations, because in my life, he's been a person where we've shared many things and had these types of intellectual conversations with each other. And ironically enough, a lot of that has happened on runs. That's a big part of what this podcast is about today is running and this new hype we see of this running culture. And if you're not a big runner, I encourage you to stick around and just listen if you're already here, right? Because running, we use it as a big example for life. And there's this new hype around running, and it seems like as a society, as a population, we've been coming back to our health, coming back to the earth. And this is huge, huge things that we're doing, sharing and spreading light and love. And that's what this podcast is all about. So if you're not sure what ultra is or ultra marathons, it's anything above a marathon, which is 26 miles. It seems to be a new sport, although running has been there for our entire lives. Some other things we get into are the process that we go through as humans of feeling things. And that might sound broad, but we dive into the actual physiological, psychological process that we go through individually as a human. And this process is slightly different for each of us, and the way we cope and deal with problems, traumas, and the way we heal ourselves and express ourselves and find what we seek, happiness, success. So we all have these different modalities, and we just talk about that process, that mental process, and actually the absorption of feelings and working through different things, including suffering. So we go over the word suffering and how it might be overused, which is an interesting perspective. And it really goes to show the power of words in general, and how understanding your vocabulary is very important in your way of expressing yourself and also building your integrity, saying what you mean and not confusing your relationships. Which leads us into something we dive into pretty deeply, which is building your life how you want, right? A lot of us are subconsciously leading these lives that aren't true to us, aren't true to our heart's purpose and our natural intuition. And this all comes down to confidence and leading our life with confidence and putting in the time and finding the balance required to know who you are. This goes into how to break down goals that you might have or passions that you want to pursue, and finding balance between the bigger picture of your entire life with the present moment, and how to build and stack and grow as an individual, as well as using these strategies for your relationships, for your businesses, for everything that we do, and all the connections that we have. So again, thank you for being a part of this conversation. And remember that we don't know anything. We are just simply talking as friends and sharing it with you, because maybe it can help you gain some perspective, gain some insight on who you are and how you interact with the world, and how to grow into the person that you desire to be, right? You already are this person, but how can we grow our mindset to be satisfied with this person on a deeper level, in terms of more consistently present with ourselves, more consistently having this foundation of integrity and simply put, happiness. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Here is Michael Wainwright.
Yeah, it seems like we're out of like the gym bro era right now, and we're into the running era.
Yeah, we're transitioning from that gym bro, where it's like now this word hybrid, a new term that's popular. It's pretty funny. Hybrid training is just really just good health, good longevity. And we kind of got on the running train where we really started bonding as friends too. And, you hit me up to do some runs years ago and really making it a part of the routine. And you've progressed so much since then. So what is running for you?
Oh man, running's the way that I stay sane, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just kind of the thing that I've latched onto in the last few years. Coming from a baseball background, I didn't do too much running. It's primarily just like sport specific lifts in the gym. So I wanted to do something a little different, do something that like was outside of my comfort zone at the time. And yeah, it's just kind of like snowballed from there. And now it is the thing that I look forward to the most every day.
It's so interesting how as we grow up, I feel like we're all like finding just ways of healing ourselves. And, it can be a spiritual thing for some people, or it could just be, like you said, running just keeps you sane, and that's like the way you use it as like a therapy. But we all have a specific thing that we kind of grow into, or many things, right? And obviously movement is it's one of the easiest things really to keep good health, not just physically, but mentally.
Yeah, we've talked about recently, sometimes you just feel called to do something. And without getting too like spiritual, like I just kind of felt called to run. And I don't know how long that'll last. Maybe it's forever. Maybe it's only like a season in my life. But right now, I'm enjoying it and trying to learn as much about myself as I can through running. And I find that long endurance events are the best way that I can learn and facilitate growth.
I just saw a video today of an ultra runner. Someone asked her, what do you chase like in terms of a euphoric feeling? And she's like, the most euphoric feeling I've ever felt was running 200 miles.
Was that Candace?
Yeah, I think
She's a beast.
I forget her name, but
Yeah.
I've been following her ever since. You're ultra.
Yeah, she's a beast.
Yeah, it's crazy. And she's like, and the more I run, the farther that feeling gets away. Like I need to do more and more and more. But it goes into, for me, running is very meditative, and that's why it's therapeutic, because right, it's an escape from the world too. So it keeps people sane because it's such a release, just like watching a fantasy TV show at the end of your day is, but it's, wouldn't replace that because both are actually good in their own way. But it's such a meditation. It's such a breath work. It's such a repetitive, you have to be focused, right? It gets you out of your head or more into your head, whichever way you want to look at it, and gets you focusing on the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how like running takes on these different forms for some people. Like you said, some people it puts them more in their head and allows them to sort their thoughts. And for me, it does the opposite. Like I can't focus on a single thought while I'm running. It's just kind of thoughts come into my head, but they're only for brief periods of time. Most of the time it's just like either white noise or just blank. And I had this post on my Instagram the other day where I was talking about this exact thing, and I always thought that was like a weird thing because I had always heard of people like having the most clear thoughts and solving all of their problems on their runs, and I thought it was weird that I didn't experience that. But then the more I thought about it, the less weird I thought it was, because of how much thinking and how loud my head is during most of the day. And while I run, like that's my time to be quiet. It's my mind's time to be quiet. And it is without a doubt like the most peaceful part of my day.
It's interesting.
And I don't know why I would want to change that. I don't think it should be changed.
And I think it's a different timing type of thing for you, for your mental universe. Like people have eye awakening, light bulb thoughts, or just able to sort their minds when they're running. But you're the peace and the presence and the serenity that it gives you, the clarity, the blankness. whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, because of that, after the fact, when you go back to the noise and go back to all the things you need to do or want to do, you have more of a foundation to take in that stuff and solve those problems.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely gives me firmer ground to stand on in the rest of my day. And there are moments during a run where like I'll have these profound thoughts or these aha moments. And those are great. And I appreciate them when they come. And I think I've just gotten past the point of like trying to force them. Like in the past, I've tried to like focus on one thing during the whole run. Like I want to solve this problem today. And that just never worked.
Yeah.
Like it was not a good route to go, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah. When you try harder at a lot of things, it's a lot of times harder to get what you want from it. Like you actually push away from it. Like if the square is not going to fit through the circle hole, you can't force it through. You have to like take a step back, let it erode, or do whatever you need to do, chisel it around, and then it'll fit through, right? Or take a step back completely and let time take care of it. And like that blank slate comes back with that time. And I think for a lot of people who do have really profound thoughts during physical activity like a run, I think it's because their body is in a different frequency, really a different vibration. It's in a different mode because of their heart rate's higher. Their nervous system's being stimulated differently. So I think that helps people's brains a lot because movement really helps change your perceptions and your moods, on chemical levels. So I think that helps people think too.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely could. I would like to hear someone that does think clearly on their run, just kind of explain it to me.
I feel that. For me, it's when I'm moving more and my body is tired physically, my mind is way more clear and not only like productive, helping me get things done in material world, but productive emotionally. And that helps me in return, like I said, go into the things that are hard with ease instead of trying to force thoughts or force a problem to be solved.
So like when you're running, you like are able to break down a problem. Like if you have something that you've been pondering over for days while you're like running or lifting or whatever, like answers start to appear and like things become a little bit more clear to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't contribute to the running, but I think it speeds up the natural process of processing things, thoughts, feelings, movement in general. Running definitely helps me meditate through something that's irritating me and find out things that aren't controllable and help me let go of that, right? Sometimes something that's not controllable, you want to hold on to it and like let it upset you or try to keep finding a solution and fantasize all these things that aren't true. And that's the process, right? Some people, it takes them a longer time and they have to go through these thoughts in order to finally wash away something that they cannot control, right? So I think it speeds that up for me. And throughout growth in my mindset personally, like that process also gets shorter in general. And the way I handle situations, what uncontrollables. But then, yeah, it'll help arise things that I can control and help me meditate and determine actions I can take for whatever I want to do. Sometimes I'll run a quick 1 or 2 miles right before I teach, and it helps me develop what I want to do and go into it more prepared.
And do you have you don't have anything that you think about prior or like that you want to solve prior to going on these runs? Or is it just kind of like pop into your mind while you're out there?
Mine's more broad. I'll go on a run when I feel anxious, but it's not like because of something. I think I guess me, things just build up more, and it's just a natural like I'm super, I would describe it like stimulated, but overwhelmed or anxious or sad, right? It can go the other way too, but yeah, it's more just like a feeling like I need to go. Sometimes playing guitar does it for me. Sometimes watching a movie or being with someone, a family member. But I think the more things you do in life, the more likely you're to learn about what you like and do it again, you know? A lot of people, so many people I'm around, right, being a trainer are like, oh, I can't run. Hate running. And I think that's fine, you know, but there's something about running that's so primal and feels so good. And they simply just haven't experienced that yet. But like I teach people in a squat, bending and folding in on yourself like a spring is one of the most basic human movements that you should be good at, right? Whether you don't need weight, just being able to do the motion. People can't even do it with their own body weight. And running is another example. It's just one of the most basic things, the gait, the walking, the moving faster. It's longevity, you know, it's fitness. I don't know why, but we grew up in a world that didn't understand these common sense connections to our human nature. And that's a whole rabbit hole. But I think, like we said in the beginning, there's a new hype around it. I think it's great. And I think a huge part of running is that I see with the trending is the community it builds. I think that's awesome, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. The running community, whether it be like local group runs, the trail community, the road running community, like all of these little communities that running helps facilitate is the best part about running. Like it's cool to run solo. It's cool to run by yourself, train by yourself, yada, yada, yada. But when you're doing something that is like, you know, quote unquote hard with other people, that is by far the best feeling. Communal hardships and suffering. I hate to use the word suffering because it's so dramatic, it's overused, and if you're doing something that you actually enjoy, even though it's hard, I don't necessarily consider that suffering. Suffering is something completely different. Everything's the way you define it, right?
Right. And the perspective you go into it with, like if you're going into something, you're like, oh, this is going to suck, I'm going to suffer. Chances are you'll feel that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But I think there's a line between something that sucks and is hard and something that is actually suffering. Mm-hmm. Like suffering to me is unchosen. Oh man, what's an example of suffering? Suffering's pretty like gruesome. Yeah. And I don't know that we want to get into too many examples about suffering because the internet probably wouldn't like it.
Point is, doing things that are hard for your personal growth aren't suffering.
No. Not in my opinion.
No, but you're making me think of the term chosen suffering. Right? Suffering, I believe, just as all other feelings and things, are a part of the equation of existence. So if you either suffer through the marathon physically, or you suffer dropping out mentally, potentially, right? So I think there is it's an element of life, and you can look at situations that way. At least that helps me to do that. Like, do you want to suffer working out and working on your health, which won't be suffering eventually, or suffer through the first week of getting into a habit of working on your health? Or do you want to suffer being unhealthy forever, your whole life, right? So you can look at things that way to motivate you.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, it's a gruesome thing. You don't want to suffer. But choosing it makes it a whole lot less of it because it's not suffering when you choose it.
Yeah. My buddy Rob kind of emphasizes the whole chosen hardship makes involuntary hardship much easier. So
better terms. I love that. And you did that to me with something that stuck with me and it will forever. And we were talking about something we were doing. And I said, do you have any like constructive criticism? And you were like, I don't like that word, but I'll give you some feedback. And that has stuck with me forever, bro. That was a couple years ago, but I've said that. I say that to people now all the time because it just gives you a better perspective to look at the thing.
Yeah. It's like, I find that it's more palatable if you're like, I'm going to give you feedback, because feedback is open-ended. It could be good. It could be bad. You have the ability to do whatever you want with it. But when people say constructive criticism, it's like, I'm going to be hard on you and hopefully you take it in a positive way. It's like, no, I'm giving you my perspective, and you can take that however you want.
It comes from when, for me anyway, like I'm asking you. So it's like when I ask people to leave a review, for example, after a class, it's better to say, hey, I would love your feedback so I can make things better in the future. But if I say, hey, I would love your constructive criticism, it just sounds
Yeah, you're opening
like
the
they're
door
looking for
them
bad things.
Exactly.
Well, getting back to community, I wanted to touch on like the ultra community. It's a big thing. And you doing photography or getting into this new field, which I've been seeing grow in your life, but also in general, obviously. And doing photography for this niche community, I think has a lot of potential. And I'm really excited to see where that goes for you. So I wanted to get your insight on like that community and what it's done for you already, because you pulled triggers and got into it, started doing it, and not just doing it yourself in running, right? But actually pulling triggers on being a photographer and reaching out to people and building your life how you want it.
So the ultra community is a bunch of great people overall. Everyone's very helpful. Everybody likes to see each other succeed. And it kind of goes back to like the shared hardship thing where it's like everybody's going through something that isn't that easy.
Well, yeah, when it comes down to safety too, like you could
yeah.
die out in some races.
Yeah.
So,
some of the mountain races are not like safe at all times. You're in these remote areas in who knows what type of conditions. But I think that's the whole community aspect, and everyone being so willing to help has helped me with the photography side of things, because just getting into just starting my business a few months ago, I didn't really have an in with the whole space. So reaching out to a few athletes and just kind of progressing from there, like I shot some of their races and everything's just kind of snowballed, and their willingness to help and willingness to have me come out and shoot them, just like showcase some pretty vulnerable moments in some of these races where a lot of people maybe wouldn't want the world to see, like how beat up and battered that they can be. I think that's been extremely valuable, and I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to work with the athletes that I have, and I've had the opportunities that I've had.
Yeah. We got to give a shout out to Paul. He just ran across the country, and Mike was there to document some of that.
Actually, I was there to really crew Paul. I was fortunate enough to bring my camera with me and shoot some of that, but Brady was the media lead there.
Nice.
Mike McKnight, for those who don't know, Mike McKnight is a very strong ultra runner, great dude, absolutely crushes 200-mile races. He was the first athlete that I ever shot for. I reached out to him before Leadville last year and shot for him there, and he was kind enough to have me out on the Arizona Trail for his FKT attempt. I've shot for him already this year, and yeah, our relationship continues to grow, and through Mike, it has kind of just opened the door to a lot of these other opportunities. Like I met Rob through Mike, and through Rob I met Paul, right. And again, everything just kind of manifests itself in weird ways that you can never really anticipate.
Such a great example. Going back to the last podcast that I posted with Mary, the topic was lead what you love. And like I said, you pulled the trigger and did the first step, which is the hardest part. And then from there, everything unfolded, and now you're already, you got your foot in the door, and it feels a lot easier now, right? And
more or less, yeah. Depends on the day.
different struggles.
Yeah.
Because you're in a different phase, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like my willingness to reach out to people is a little bit, like that's a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But every day kind of feels like day one still. Mm-hmm. Where it's like I'm not that cemented into the space where I have people knocking on my door, but
but like we were talking about on our run today, confidence.
Yeah.
Leading with confidence is so important, and people are scared of their own confidence, I think, and I see. The best way to build confidence is to do the work required, right? If you want to be confident for a test in high school, study and you'll be confident. Like, it gives you confidence. If I want to be confident teaching a yoga class, then if I put in the work to know what I want to do, then the confidence is natural. But even when approached in situations where you might not feel prepared, confidence will still pull you through and may open up doors unforeseeable. And the point is, people's perspective potentially of you in the space, or me in my entrepreneurial lifestyle, I could tell you right now, I don't know what I'm doing still, right? But I'm pretty confident about it. And I'm going to keep doing the things that I do know with utmost confidence. But running a business is still new, you know? You being in this field is still new. But when people reach out to you or you reach out to them, that confidence is what's going to push you forward and make you grow and compound your growth.
I agree. And I think that translates not only just like, it's not only applicable in business, but the same goes for fitness goals. It's like you just need to be confident that you can achieve what you're setting out to. It doesn't mean that you can right now, but you need to know that you are capable of doing it.
Yeah, that goes on long term, like being in the shape you want to be in. But also, you're making me think in the moment too. Like, if I'm doing a handstand and I'm just kind of like not, you know, I said to you yesterday, I'm kind of sore. You know, I could have easily went into that workout like just kind of slacking, like, I'm kind of sore, like maybe I shouldn't be working out, and have this whole mindset of not being confident. But instead, I was like, oh, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do the one move I know that will feel okay, and I'm just going to push it hard. And I was confident, and I ended up feeling amazing, doing really good moves and getting good reps in and feeling really good after and actually benefiting. So
I think confidence gets your foot in the door, and then once you're in, you can just adapt. You don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to get into the room. And confidence is the key to unlock the door that gets you in the room.
Well, to the quote that made me actually ask you to do this podcast today, move the body and the mind will follow. And this goes with doing things physically and finding confidence, pulling triggers in any aspect that you want to grow in, right? Move your body and your mind will follow. And it's just been sticking with me so much. And recently I've been doing a lot physically, and we've been running more. You especially have been running a lot. And you might have been getting similar comments as me, but I've had a few comments in the past few days like, how are you doing so much like that? Like, aren't you overtraining? Or I've gotten a few comments like that, and I send them the quote, and I'm doing it with confidence too, because a lot of times I'm not confident, and like the night before I'm thinking, oh, I have to run 7 miles tomorrow. Like, I don't know if I can, like, I don't know if that's smart, and then I get up and do it and I feel amazing. But the thoughts, the doubts, so natural, so a part of the equation of life. It's just being able to get up and pull the trigger and move your body, and your mind will follow and you'll adapt, like you said.
Yeah, it's an interesting quote. And after you told me it this morning, I was thinking about it, and everything you said is correct. It's like, if you have doubts, just quiet them for long enough to start whatever you're doing.
Or just listen to them and then
just do it anyway.
You know, yeah, like if the doubts in this example were coming the night before, okay, fine. I don't need to act on them.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the thing yet. Let me go to sleep. Let me wake up, and then just move the body. Let time go by.
Yeah.
Do the things you planned on. Or I mean, that's a whole nother topic, like procrastination, planning, like actually doing the things. Like we could have pushed off this podcast easily, and then never did it. But it's doing it, and it's new, and it's so many layers to this. I'm getting into some of the layers that I don't quite understand yet. So I'm starting to do the things more, And the confidence is the momentum is making them all easier.
I think that's kind of what the quote's speaking to. It's like, do the things and then the mind will follow. It's like the confidence comes with doing the thing. The confidence doesn't come before doing the thing. And at first I kind of thought it's like you need to have this belief and this idea before you start moving.
A good example is waking up in the morning for people who experience the feeling of not wanting to get out of the bed. If you sit there and think about getting out of the bed repetitively, it's still going to suck.
Yeah.
But if you just get up and move the body, your mind is there every step of the way, and life becomes easier as you wake up. You know?
Totally. And again, I think going back to in order to build confidence, you need you need a stack of actions that create the confidence.
Right. The best Alex Hormozy quote.
Yeah. If you want to build confidence, what is the quote? It's like, confidence comes from a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Great quote. But then I thought, what is the best way to get started? And not to really make this about myself, but when I was planning to set or attempt to set this FKT,
Which is, for people who don't know.
Oh, okay. So for people that don't know, I'm training for this FKT attempt, which is the fastest known time. And I want to run the New Jersey section of the Appalachian Trail unsupported faster than anyone's ever done it. That time is like 18 hours and 25 minutes.
How many miles?
72 miles, like 8,000 feet of vert. So in my mind, pretty achievable. And I think that is where things started. It's like I had this idea. I thought it was possible. And then from there, you have
to build the proof.
I have to build the proof. And I have to, so it started with the mind, and then it goes to the body. Like, okay, now we need to build the confidence that we need to build the engine that's going to create this FKT.
The outcome.
Yeah, it's going to create the outcome. So it's kind of like mind, body, mind. And I think that without having the initial thought that it was possible, regardless of what I was doing running wise, I would have never had the initiative to start.
Before even thinking it's possible, you have to have a desire.
Yeah.
Or experience and knowledge to even know what that is, but for anyone to know what your goal is, you have to have the thought, the desire, the feeling of that's what I want to do, or that's what sounds exciting or fun or productive or positive, right? You can do whatever you want, and we all are, right? We're all doing our best in life to find happiness or fulfillment or health or success, whatever that means. So I think that's sick. When's that coming up?
I'm doing that July 13th and should be finishing on the 14th. Yeah, so it's like six weeks away.
Very cool. And how do you feel so far? Legs feeling good?
No.
They're sore now.
Legs are sore. But that's just like par for the course.
Yep.
It's just kind of what I expected, especially given the fact that I decided to do this like 2-3 weeks ago. I gave myself less than like 10 weeks to actually train.
It's enough time.
Yeah, it's plenty of time.
Because with stuff like this, you're training your whole life, really.
It's not like I came off the couch. Like, right. I was running before
you
that.
Have a base.
So.
You have your base.
Yeah.
And with anything, right, you need your base.
Yeah.
And this leads me to another topic I want to get in is standard in general, but standard of athleticism. And you are choosing to have a higher standard than before which leads you to say, don't really have optimal training time to reach the standard. But going back to the comments of, aren't you overtraining, right? It's just the standard that society or each individual person subconsciously has on athleticism or on what's acceptable for the human body or whatever. So, but it's opinion based, right?
Absolutely.
It's a standard. So some people can't fathom someone running 200 miles in that whatever time he did, people do it in, which is insane, right? But it's just, into some of those people, it's not fast enough, right? It's just the standard. So
I think this is one of the lessons that ultra running and running in general has kind of taught me, is learning how to break things down into palatable chunks. So it's breaking down goals into bite-sized pieces, and if people lack that ability, then everything seems
hard,
unimaginable. But it's the people that are able to chunk things down and work towards that goal and kind of create a process for themselves. Or sure, maybe they're not able to achieve that right now, but over time, through consistency, they're able to achieve that eventually. And then once that bar's set, I'm a big believer in I call it raising the hard bar. I think that there's times where that's what you're doing. You're raising the hard bar, like the level that you've set for yourself of like, this is hard. There's no way that I can do anything past this. You have to push that bars like higher, and eventually, maybe, I don't know that you ever get to a point where
the standard's always changing.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear the word standard, I think of, I guess the first time it was introduced to me was through finances and through specifically like your savings account. And what's your, we all have this standard, whether we realize it or not, of like that little safety net, right? A little bit of money in the savings account. You have this standard of how much money you need to not worry about money when you go out throughout your daily life, right? Some people who have more money just have a higher standard of what that savings account is. And as we grow, that standard changes. But until you have the awareness of like, oh, I have a standard, because subconsciously when it goes when your savings account is more, you look for ways to spend the money. You're going to look for ways to go back to that standard until you raise that bar. So I think that's a powerful way to look at it. And it's at least helped me a lot. I have a final question to wrap up.
Okay.
Any hopes for humanity through your perspective of life, based on the struggles you see the world going through and the things you're interested in that you think will help? What are your hopes for humanity in your lifetime, and maybe, potentially for your kids' lifetime?
I hope that we can all start to see each other as human. And I hope that we can treat each other as such. I think it's difficult nowadays to see people as either more than or less than yourself, and then you treat them in those respective ways. But I think treating each other as equals, as co-inhabitants of the planet, will only lead to more positive interactions and a more happy population.
Going further is to see the earth as the earth, the thing that we are here because of. And to see each other as humans comes down to also seeing our human connection to this planet, and that we won't be here without it. And just realizing this connection to it. And like we said in the very beginning of this conversation, is getting back to our health, getting back to the whole foods, getting back to the regenerative farming, getting back to spirituality, in one of my opinions, right? Like getting back to, in spirituality, what that means is just focusing on what makes us happy, what makes us happy as individual humans, but also as communities and also as societies and as a world, which comes down to health. It's such a deep thing, and it can be looked at very complex or very simple, depending on which layer you're on or how deep you want to go.
This was a good question. It was a good question.
Well, it was a lot of fun talking.
It was. This was good.
For sure.
Yeah.
For the people, if you want to see Mike's journey in the ultra community with his own runs, and his photography as well, is taken off, documenting other big runs, and just health in general, getting into the space. I'm going to leave all the Instagrams and links in the description. Pleasure, brother.
Yeah. Thanks
Anything you want to add?
That's it, man. Just don't settle for anything less than you're capable of, and you're capable of a lot more than you think.
And you decide what you're capable of as well.
Yeah. You are your greatest limitation and also your greatest superpower.
Sounds good, brother. Peace.